very good morning to you. Bright and early right here on Channels Television. Welcome to the Morning Brief. I'm Jeffrey Uzonga.
We're your perfect day starter. Good morning. This is Lagos. We're coming to you live from Channels Television's global headquarters. I'm Kayode Okikilo. It's a Wednesday morning. And while there are lots of things to be grateful for, I think Nigerians need to properly contextualize and internalize Favour Philly's race yesterday. Well, a lot of people were disappointed. And we're bringing this to you because, we take away from the good, bad, and the ugly. A lot of people were disappointed, but I think that she can hold her head up high for the mere fact that she got into the Olympics final. I can tell you that billions of people in the world cannot even get close to the Olympics, particularly that track and field. So I think for that reason, we won last night.
Yeah, she should just. I'm even surprised she was able to make it down to that particular, because given the many things that heralded, coming to Paris and all of the registration, all of the things that she had to deal with as an athlete, being able to walk around that psychological path. So I think she should be easy on herself. And next time, the managers and the handlers of our sports athletes and all of that. Yeah. I should do a better job, because these are very, very, simple things. Basic housekeeping could actually affect the psychological state of the athletes. But we are hopeful. We now have our hopes on the Tigress. We have our hopes on the people that are running the long jump. Yeah. We have our hopes on Amushan. We have our hopes on a couple of other people. I'll keep telling you, over 10 billion naira to be spent to go to Paris. Let's come out with something, even if it's a bronze. I refer to London Olympics, where we didn't get an earth medal. Let's hope that this time, these young people, these athletes, will be able to rise to the occasion. But Ophelia, just take it easy. We understand it's not easy, because she just missed it by just seconds, literally, just like what happened in the 100 meters male finals, where it was just the cursor, that last-minute movement that denied the Jamaican the first place, and the USA had to win it at the end of the day. So these are critical elements of the sport. So what we try to do every day when we come on the show, given what is happening in our country, is to first tell you the exciting, softer, happy side of things. We thought we were going to be happier today, but, well, it happened that we couldn't get that final happiness. But congratulations to Philly. You have another 4 years to prepare. I'm sure next time you're going to do better.
Yeah, and I must say that we also, for some people, discovered another Nigerian sprinter yesterday, Samuel Ogazi, who qualified for 400 meters final. So while the women have been dominated, at least we have a male.
Finally, to change the narrative.
Finally in the final. So it's good to see. We must take a step back, absolutely, to take a look at management of sports in Nigeria. We keep touting that we're blessed with human resources, we're blessed with sporting talent. But what is that blessing if we're not able to translate it into reality? I mean, on that medal table, it's still 0-0-0 for Nigeria. So it doesn't quite make sense. I think it's high time, if we had not done that before, we sat down and said, do we really want to do this? If not, maybe we should just put all of these competitions on hold first, so we can get our acts together, because we keep going out there. Sometimes we embarrass our athletes from what we've seen with Favour. Some other times, I mean, there was a video, we just don't want to show you the video, right after the race, where she was crying, literally bawling. And, I couldn't see, I mean, I may be wrong, but I didn't see Nigerian officials around there in the mixed area, right after the race. I couldn't see anybody there to, just placate her, to tell her it's okay, at least from the Nigerian side. So it speaks to the support or the lack of it. And I think it's important that we actually face the issues. We can't keep relying on all those sparks of creativity, sparks of ingenuity. We need to have a culture, a system, a structure that I can always rely on to churn out our best athletes. So it's not the end for Favour of Philly. Absolutely. We wish you the very best. We thank you for giving us something to cheer about. We didn't see it coming, so thank you, Favour of Philly.
Thank you for the service. And coming back home, I saw a video yesterday. It was very disheartening to see that video in Lagos here. And this is what we always tell the governor. and the commissioners and everybody who speaks for Lagos State government. Now, at the end of the day, not necessarily like that. Maybe the government sent them or did not send them, but it happened in Ojota yesterday. One of our colleagues on another station literally harassed on live television while he was doing live crossing. So what we understand is the fact that the police have said, go across, film from quite a distance, don't come to the Ganifa Emi Park area. So they were filming from that distance. I would expect that if you tell people to film from that distance, you provide some level of security, given how volatile these things can be. And then on live TV, the last time I saw that kind of harassment was, I think, in South Africa, where somebody stole from a journalist while doing live crossing on live TV. And then we could see these thugs and these hoodlums harassing these journalists, pushing them, literally telling them, look, get back into your vehicle and get out of this place. And they had no help. And they were able to speak in the dialects, say, look, calm down and all of that, but they refused to listen. Lagos is a metropolitan city. And when we see things like this, it's just retrogressive and it's not acceptable. The government has to be called out. Everybody who is responsible for our safety and security. As we've always said, we are journalists. This is our job. The Constitution protects us to do our job. Our job is to cover the good, the bad, the ugly. That is what the law says. So it's quite disheartening to see what happened yesterday. And even the other day, I think the first day or second day, our colleague, Kele Giga, was literally harassed right there in Ojota. Yeah. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable.
This is calling out to the Lagos State government yet again. We spoke with them during this protest, and they had said that the area boys are now known as good boys. Those were the words of the Lagos State government right here in the studio, that the area boys are transforming them to good boys. What we saw in that clip was not an act from a good boy or a group of good boys, not at all. And it just raises questions about who exactly is in charge. It cannot be the good boys, as you call them. By the way, what we saw yesterday was outright area boy mannerism and show.
Thuggery.
Thuggery, exactly. So, Lagos State government, you may be calling them good boys, but what we saw yesterday was not the act of a good boy. So we need to ensure that things are done the right way. If government is in charge, government needs to show it is in charge. If the police is in charge, show that you're in charge. This is unacceptable. I think that's enough for now.
So we'll keep reiterating this thing so that government acts. So government is always quick to pick either protesters and all of that. When it comes to area boys, there's always an explanation. So it's difficult for people not to think you're responsible. So I hope you get the logic as government, whether the federal government, the state government, so all government. So if it's other people, they are quick to be found. But when it's area boys, there's an explanation. So how do you defend that? Well, that's all we have for you. Let's get to the crux of the matter. With 4 public refineries and the Dangote refinery, Nigeria should arguably be energy sufficient right now and a major exporter of petroleum product. But that is still a dream, unfortunately. How close is it? And how can the Nigerian state overcome the power play in the sector to reposition the nation's biggest cash cow?
And the other big question is, will the price of petrol come down? We'll find answers.
That is the final point.
That is the final point. That's the final product. But that's not all we have for you on the show this morning. With the latest crisis and chaos that has trailed the nationwide agitation for a better social contract, it appears that this may have just complicated a delicate balance between national security and the constitutional right to protest. So we ask, what's the way forward? How do you engage government moving forward? And how do we get the results that we desire from government moving forward? Those are questions we'll get answers to.
We must say these are trying times. Let's now tell you one more thing we'll do on the program today. The South State of Edo is one of those preparing for the off-cycle season election. At the core of the contest is how well or otherwise has the incumbent leadership under Godwin Obaseki bettered the fortune of his people. What has the state done with the increased allocation from FARC? And what's the real story around the federal government rice delivery to Edo State? An official of the state will join us right here for that clarification. Remember, the Honorable Minister for Niger Delta Affairs had accused the government of being complicit in the rebagging of the rice, perhaps keeping it for the election. Yeah. Well, we are giving them the right to reply. So
and it started from Senator Shomole.
Yes, Shomole started.
Exactly, and the government, or at least a representative of the party, spoke back. So it's been a lot of back and forth over rice. But you understand, it's 20 trucks of rice. So let me put that in the right way. It's 20 trucks of rice, so it's not just jollof rice.
Yeah.
People fight over jollof rice in parties, but this is not what we want to see when it comes to government. But that's not all. You can be a part of the show. Hashtag CTV Morning Brief, as you can see right there. That is the password to joining us on the show this morning. Or you can just go over to WhatsApp right now and use the number which you'll see on your screen in just a few moments. Send us a message. There you go. Send us a message. Send us videos. If you have something worth sharing with the world, as we always do, put it right there, either on WhatsApp or hashtag CTV Morning Brief. We're here for you.
So at the end of the day, just to let you know, before we go for the top story, somebody had said that, look, it's like government's response to all situation is rice, rice, rice. There's flood, there's rice, there's rice. I just wanted to blame that.
Well, it's a no-brainer, Jeffrey. On our menu is rice to most times. You can take jollof rice in the morning, fried rice in the afternoon, and ofada rice.
Our government are experts with the rice response. Just a light aside. Well, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll bring you your top stories and we'll get to the very, very first conversation for the day. Join us again. Up on the brief this morning is yet another warning signal to who the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, describes as the enemies of the state, maintaining that the armed forces are prepared to defend Nigeria's democracy. At the joint media briefing of the heads of security agencies in Abuja, General Musa says the armed forces are united in their resolve to deal with anyone or group of persons who attempt to destabilize the country. Also speaking at the event, Inspector General of Police, who denies allegation of deploying live ammunition to disperse protesters while assuring that those flying foreign flags will be prosecuted for treason.
Group of people who started campaign, subversive campaign, waving flags of other countries and openly calling for military takeover of government. This is not a protest, but an offense of treason. The Nigerian police has arrested a number of them, and they will be dealt with accordingly. It is very, very implicating for them to be seen with flags of other countries while on protest. The police and the military, indeed no other security agency involved in the management of this protest has deployed excessive use of force. Instead, what we had was attack on security agents during the protest. From our record, there was no shooting incident by the police. The police or the military did not use any live ammunition in the management of this protest. Instead, we have had cases where our officers were injured critically and are still in critical condition in the hospital as we speak. So I will dismiss that as fake news. It is not true. It's a very wrong allegation.
So with our joint briefing, the Department of State Services is set to name sponsors or persons flying their foreign flags with the aim of promoting insurrection in the country. The spokesperson of the DSS, Mr. Peter Afanaya, says the identities of the persons will soon be made public as he urges Nigerians to be patient with what the federal government is doing.
We want to join goodwill Nigerians, persons of patriotic disposition, to say you cannot destroy your nation and still want to have it. You cannot, by any stroke of any imagination, be in the forefront of destroying your nation. The places that we desire to go to live in, they are who they are because they obey laws, because they love their nations, People protest, but protest can also be of significant good if people adhere to the rules of engagement. In situations where protesters destroy public infrastructure, pilfer, loot, and undermine public peace, that definitely will not be tolerated. And there is no responsible government or security organization in any nation across the world that will fold their hands and allow the peace of their nation brought down by people who are either have decided to be subversive or illegitimately disposed to insecurity and disorder. We appeal to our youth, to our mothers, to our fathers, to the generality of Nigerians, to please give peace a chance and allow the government to do what is needful, as committed as it has become. The federal government and all the subnationals will do what is very strategic for the nation.
Let's also tell you that the Kaduna State Governor, Senator Ube Sani, has visited the public and private offices and a bank vandalized by hoodlums during the End Bad Governance protest in the state capital. Accompanied by heads of security agencies, he also assessed compliance with the 24-hour curfew imposed by the state government. Governor Sani condemned the destruction and looting of public and private assets by hoodlums who hijacked the protest, stating that the acts were sponsored by anti-democratic elements aiming to cause anarchy.
I want to commend the security for managing the situation, because if you notice what happened, some of the children were even climbing the APC, the armored vehicle of the police, which of course that shows that the police have been very understanding. They acted professionally for them to allow the children, because they realize that those children are underage. But here in Kaduna, we are investigating the situation, and we will try as much as possible to get to the root of those who are sponsoring these very unfortunate things in Kaduna State. What is happening in Nigeria today are people attacking democracy. And I believe all of us must come together to defend democracy in Nigeria, because we must fight for democracy for it to survive in this country. The anarchists are trying to take over the country by instigating the children of the poor, the underserved, and the underprivileged people within our society. And like I said, all of us that are in this government were aware of the fact that yes, there is hardship in the country. We need to quickly take some very drastic measures and policies to address the problem of hunger, the problem of insecurity, the problem of poverty. But that is not something that people should take advantage to now bring down the democracy.
From there, we head to Port Harcourt, the River State capital, where the End Bad Governance protests entered day 6, with demonstration turning a bit rowdy. The protesters are insisting on the government meeting the demands of Nigerians who want a better deal in their social contract. The APC secretariat along Aba Road experienced some level of vandalism, and there has been a blame game between the party and the state government.
We had information that they have been paid to destroy our party secretariat. And who is paying them? They are being paid and sponsored by the government of River State, whose interest, as far as this matter is concerned, is to make River State at the epicenter of protests. Somebody asked me, how would I link it to the governor? That how about what is happening in Kaduna and all that? I said, those areas are volatile already. They are. So that this protests have become protracted, that these protests have become destructive, of course, speaks a whole lot. All right? And you see, the only person who is enjoying the entire thing in the whole state is the governor and his convoy.
What they are doing now is the kicking of a dying horse, and I believe strongly that they know that it's not in our bloodline. The governor of the state, Siminala Ifubara, is not given to destructive tendencies. If there are those who have such in their gene, you all know. And we are too busy with the affairs of the state. So River State government cannot in any form or guise do anything that will bring disrepute to the people of the state.
All right, we now head back north in Kano State, where The police has announced the arrest of foreign nationals suspected of sponsoring protesters carrying that Russian flag. The State Police Commissioner, Mr. Salman Dogo, disclosed this after a security meeting with Governor Abba Yusuf. According to him, the police and other security agencies will clamp down on anyone attempting to tamper with the security of the state. Meanwhile, the state governor has also announced a further relaxation of curfew, now extending it from 6 p.m. To 6 a.m. That had happened, so there's a relaxation as far as Kano, which has been one of the volatile areas as far as the protest is concerned. In the meantime, some semblance of normalcy has returned to the nation's capital, Abuja, after days of face-off between the protesters and the law enforcement agencies, who insist that the demonstrations must be confined to the MK Abiola Stadium as ordered by the court. However, a former country director of Action Aid Nigeria, Ms. NLB, and a human rights activist, Hawa Mustafa, held a sit-out at the stadium, maintaining that they will report there till day 10 to drive home the demands of the protesters and ensure that their rights are respected. In business news, following the approval of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Unity Bank and Providence Bank have agreed to combine interests. This scheme of arrangement between the two banks comes amid the recapitalization directive by the Apex Bank. The banks say the partnership will increase the number of branches available to customers across Nigeria to boost financial inclusion, and the merger considers the interests of both depositors and the investors. On the international scene, things just got interesting. Following days of speculations, Democratic Party presumptive presidential nominee and U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has now picked Tim Walz as a running mate, opting for the Minnesota governor as the partner most likely to complement her in a historic bid for the White House. Governor Walz had been on a short list with a string of other Democratic figures seen as broadening Harris's appeal as she sprints into the contest against Donald Trump. Aiming to make history as the first woman president, Harris already has as a trailblazer. She's the first female and first black and South Asian vice president as little time before the election day on November the 5th. And now to sport, not quite cheering news, I must say, from Paris, where Nigerian sprinter Favour Phili has missed out on a podium finish at the Paris 2024 Olympics 200 meters final. She narrowly missed out on the medal, finishing just 4th, 100th of a second behind third place Brittany Brown. In the United States, Gabrielle Thomas finished in the first place with a staggering 21.83 seconds ahead of Gillian Alfred, who clinched some seconds with about 22.08 seconds as far as that race is concerned. Well, those are the stories we've been tracking for you in the last 24 hours and earlier part of the day. It will form part of our conversation for the program and the rest of the day. Kaide joins me now to bring us up to speed with what's been happening. What are they saying online?
A lot of things, as usual, particularly now that we're in the era of civil disobedience. That's what you can also call protests. It's civil disobedience actions to draw the government's attention to issues. But the IGP statement saying that the police did not fire live ammunitions on protesters is what we're starting off with today. What are you saying about that? By the way, you can get your comments in #CTV Morning Brief and on WhatsApp as well. But this first user, Jeffrey Osama, well, disagrees with the IGP entirely, saying that the police, according to this user, used live ammunition on unarmed protesters in Kano, resulting in the loss of many innocent lives. So this very first user disagrees with the Inspector General of Police, IGP Kayode Egbetoku, outrightly. And I recall that one of the APC leaders in Kano State, his name Musa Eliasu Kwankwaso, a former commissioner as well, had actually asked the government to probe those deaths in Kano State. So it's important for the police to speak to specifics, not just give the blanket statements. I know that this force spokesperson gave a statement on 3rd of August about some of the incidents that we had recorded, but there's been no updates to specifics ever since then. So it's important The police
so if the police did not fire live ammunition, how did the people die? Was it stampede?
Who did?
So the IGP, there's a lot of explanation. It's not just a blanket statement. You need to explain to Nigerians.
Yeah.
And then remember, let's also add that and remind the IGP that the only way Nigerians will believe you again is that you had said before this protest that policemen will wear body cams. So we want to see the video from those body cams, especially in those volatile areas. That is the only proof that you have to show that Nigerians will not, whether Nigerians will believe it or not. Well, he said this, he has a right to say what he has to say, but this is what Nigerians are saying. So produce the body counts. People have died. I can't remember the number now. So if people died, something happened that they died. If it wasn't by live ammunition, the only way the police can exonerate is by evidence, is to say this is our body cam, this is what happened, because we've seen videos. So it's neither here nor there on all sides until it is proven to be true. Joseph, the boss 08 says, and the protesters died mysteriously, right? Even the video evidence all over social media and this 7-year spokesperson accepted was not by the police, right? I don't know why God is this merciful, but one day. Okay, so that's the sentiment of an ex-user trying to corroborate what we said. So how did the people die? I think the IGP has to explain that.
Well, Odi Simon has this next one asking that were you at the various scenes? That's what this user is asking the IGP this morning, despite the overwhelming video evidence. This user says, or is asking, why are you still denying? So it's important, again, as we said, that the police particularly speaks to the specifics. So what happened in Kano, beyond what we saw on August the 3rd, that is how you build trust. Absolutely.
Yes. So let's help the police. IGP, direct message to you. Please produce the body cam of the policeman you
Was that for general Nigeria or just for Lagos?
I don't know, but he said there will be body cams. I think that was a release from Muyiwa Jojobi also. So
interesting.
Let's have body cams, because this kind of scenario, things like this, they will accuse the police. So police has to respond as well. Immigration places sponsors of mayhem on watch list. Cranium says people are hungry. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. People are hungry no matter how the lies, hunger recycles and starts all over again in 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days in a year, unending and endless. All this distraction, foreign agenda, propaganda, people are hungry, okay?
Well, this is standard procedure, just to put it out there. So this is part of the work of immigration. They have to do these things.
Exactly.
Moving on to another one now. This is from the customs boss, and I think this should get a lot of people excited, saying that suspension of duties on imported food will lower prices. I know you want to hear has lowered prices, but it is will, and it gave a time frame of a week or so while they finish up all of the paperwork and the rest at the Ministry of Finance. The first user, Atoyebi OY, says that is the only solution. If it's implemented today, or some will say yesterday, by weekend, food prices and hospital drugs will reduce drastically. So as I said, a lot of people cannot wait for this to come to fruition. But whether or not it will really change things significantly, because say in Nigeria, if it goes up, it might not come down. But let's keep hope alive.
All right, fuel subsidy is back, according to a statement credited to former President Olusegun Obasanjo. And Abuja Connect says, we never see him. We need the president to publicly address this and make a statement. Thanks, ex-president.
Okay, so I think it goes without saying, if you want to build trust, you need to be transparent and accountable to the people, okay? This next one is from Senator Ndume. Jeffrey, it's been a lot of back and forth. Senator Ndume, former chief whip, was removed because of a statement he made by the Senate. He was removed by the Senate, but then he visited the APC's executives yesterday, and it looked like they are mending the issues, but will he return as chief whip? Is a big one. But take a look at what people have to say about Senator Ndume apologizing after those statements. So this user, that's Odunayo, rather, Ibironke, says, well, it's a nice thing, but Mr. Ndume should be given the room to meet with the president to express his mind.
I think what he said again is the fact that, look, he's not going back on what he said. He's just apologizing for not routing it correctly. So it's not as if he's taking back his words.
He said it out of patriotism and love for the country.
All right, CBN approves merger of Unity Providence Bank. Chijioke _Deck 30 says, very good development, but why is Heritage Bank allowed to go down just like that? Well, CBN will answer that.
What is it going down? It's actually just a takeover. And I think these things are not alien in the world of business. And just essentially, final one.
I think he was talking about another bank altogether.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So, says that's very good because Unity Bank is not a bank that should stand alone. Oh, yes. The other user was talking about a heritage bank.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what they had to.
Oh, there you go. I thought he was talking about
and their services to Nigerians. Okay. Those are the stories and the ones we've been able to track. Keep it coming. WhatsApp is another option. So in case you're still protesting, wherever it is that is happening, well, reach us via WhatsApp. And you can also post on X. We'll amplify your voice right here on the program. That's our responsibility.
And if you're going to work as well, you're going about your business, let us know. Let's represent all the sides.
Absolutely. So maybe some semblance of normalcy, but the prices are still high. So Nigerians are still agitated. Nigerians are still protesting one way or the other. But it's about building our country. We're all doing this out of patriotism. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll start the very first conversation for today. Join us again.
Two things are really at the heart of these agitations, the demonstrations and protests across the country. The price of food, that's just basic. But then behind that is the price of petrol, which of course has added to the price of food items because of transportation costs, has added to the price of, or the cost of doing business and other costs for Nigerians and businesses. So we've paid a lot of attention to food, farming, agriculture and the rest. But what about the petrol angle of this? It looks like the president is adamant with the removal of subsidy, saying that, well, it has come to stay. So how do we find our way around this, particularly with the announcement that crude will be sold in Naira to refineries in Nigeria? If that happens, will the price of petrol drop? That is a big question. So let's try to get answers to that as we're joined on the program this morning by the Publicity Secretary, Crude Oil Refiners Association of Nigeria, Corin, Mr. Eche Stephen Idoko. Good morning, Mr. Idoko. You're welcome to the Morning Brief.
Yeah, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Nigerians right now are looking for some glimmer of hope. Yes, this government promised renewed hope, but Nigerians really want to see that in reality. So they're looking around. They looked to favor Philly at the Olympics, and they were excited, just something to cheer about. But today we're focusing on your sector. Fine, you're not in the Olympics, you're not running a race, but what you're doing matters to the lives of Nigerians. But before we get to the point where we ask, will this significantly change the price of petrol, particularly the announcement made by the government, let us know, as of today, is there any refinery that is churning out petrol, PMS, as at right now, today? Mr. Idoko.
Okay. Good morning once more. And let me use this opportunity to say congratulations to Ophili Favor. Even though she didn't win a medal, we're still proud of what she's been able to achieve. Nigerians are proud of her. Yeah, to your question, we don't have any refinery in Nigeria at the moment as we speak producing PMS. But we do have refineries that are on the way to setting up plants that can produce PMS. I know Aradel, which is one of our members and actually who prides itself as the first private refinery in Nigeria. Started with the 1,000, climbed to 5,000, and now they are doing 11,000. Those have installed capacity to produce PMS. And the reason why they haven't activated their plant is because of the whole uncertainty around the regime of supply, sales, and pricing of PMS.
Right. I just wanted to lay the cards on the table so we can then approach it from them, because even the modular refineries, the smaller ones, and we're not talking about Fire right now, we're talking about the ones that are established. There's nobody churning out PMS as of today, so it's still on the way. But let's try to picture what the future would look like. I know that...
Yeah, but Aradel is... Yeah.
Go ahead.
Let me add, Aradel is actually a modular refinery, by the way. So there are modular refineries with configurations to yes. And yeah, so I just wanted to put that out.
No, absolutely. But I just wanted to also lay it bare that there is none churning out petrol as of now. But we can at least look at what the future holds. And by future, I mean in the coming days, because August is meant to be a big month for Nigeria, both for Dangote and Port Harcourt refineries, and perhaps the modular refineries which you talk about. And of course, we can add the announcement by government that crude will now be sold to the local refineries. We'll talk about the implementation, the formula, and what you have seen so far. But I want to go ahead just so that Nigerians understand why this is important. Does this have a tendency to reduce the price of petrol? And in what percentage are you looking at? Again, Nigerians need hope, Mr. Idoko.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, the very moment that pronouncement was made by the Federal Executive Council, we did come out to say that this was a huge step in the right direction. It was part of the recommendations from the committee painstakingly put together by the federal government that brought together heads in the industry and different government agencies to look into the issue around ramping up local refining. So it was a welcome development for us, and we did say that this was going to definitely have a lot of impact in what the pricing is. But it will be it will be misleading for us to come out at this time and tell you, okay, oh, this is by what percentage the price would be affected when we begin to deal in dollars, because there are two sides to it. So if we begin to deal in naira, because there are two sides to it. So are we, if we are going to do in naira, are we going to still allow the regime of the dollars floating, or we are going to peg the price at a particular exchange rate in dollars and we sell in naira? Now, when that is determined, then we'll be able to see exactly, okay, this is the landing cost for crude oil in naira, because it's going to be an equivalent of the dollar in naira. So, and then we'll be able to do our computations and tell you, okay, this is the percentage we'll be expecting to see the price drop. But in this current regime where the naira is floating and left to float against the dollar in the open market, it would be a bit difficult for us to peg the price. But the sheer fact that it is going to be sold in naira alone, it's going to give a lot of reprieve to the naira against the dollar, and affect the value of the naira in the money market, and to that extent it will also affect what the end price eventually is for what we would be selling to the retailers.
All right, Mr. Idoko, let's put a few facts together so that for the purpose of our audience. So we know that Dangote refinery's full capacity should be doing 650. Our other 4 refineries, 2 in Port Harcourt, 1 in Warri, 1 in Kaduna, should do between 455 to maybe 450. So cumulatively, we're talking about almost 1.1 million barrels. So you're a member of the Association of Refiners. The other ones, whether it's modular, or the names that is being called, what is, in your estimation, according to facts, what is their capacity?
Yes. Okay. So, well, in total capacity, if all the licensed refineries come on stream, we'll be able to do about 200 to 250 barrels per day for those that have been licensed and have been and are at various stages of construction right now. If they are completed, we'll be able to add another 250, between 200 to 250 barrels per day to the production.
So now we're talking about, by that calculation, I can do just hazard it around 1.3 or so million barrels per day if every body comes on stream. But speak to us about this directive by the president. We're still hearing stories here and there, but you are the ones that are the players. So whether it's becoming effective or it's been implemented, or the timeline or the basic housekeeping has not been done for it to start implementation based on the law, PIA. The president directed that Dangote refineries and other refineries should be sold crude in naira. How far has that come? Has it been implemented? Are you guys seeing crude to buy? I wanted you to speak to that entire spectrum.
Okay, yeah, we have mentioned where we are at on several forums, especially here. So as it stands right now, none of our members that I know have started uplifting crude in naira. Of course, we did mention after the pronouncement that the pronouncement was welcoming, but there was still few steps that had to be taken for it to become implementable. It was just a Federal Executive Council's pronouncement. There need to be a regulatory framework that would enable us access crude in naira, and there has to be a guideline as to how we can access. We have to know exactly what quantity it's coming to us in naira and all that. All those details are yet to be worked out. Well, it was a recent pronouncement, so we'll give the government the benefit of the doubt. We are hoping that in the coming days they would be sitting down with us as stakeholders, because we can't shave a man's head in his absence. we are hoping that if our members should be part and parcel of the processes. But what I can tell you is that in terms of crude availability, in line with the PIA, the NUPRC, of course, working with the NMDPRA, had gone ahead to put in place the guideline, the Domestic Crude Supply Obligations Guideline. And what we are waiting for is for that guideline to be gazetted. We extensively debated this, or participated fully with other stakeholders, including the independents, the OPTS, and then of course ourselves, and Dangote. So we had discussed that extensively. We have a document that we think mirrors the mind of all of the stakeholders to an extent. But where that is now, whether it has been gazetted, is what we do not know. I'm sure NUPRC would be in the best position to respond to that. But if that document, the crude domestic supply guideline, comes on stream, it would aid those of our refineries that are producing now to at least begin to access crude under the regime that is ongoing in terms of the incentives that are supposed to come to us. But as it stands right now, none of our members are accessing crude yet under this regime, and we are actually asking the government to expedite this action so that people can begin to reap the benefits of having refineries operating in country.
All right, Mr. Idoko, so help us out here on what you mean by the guidelines, because the PIA, beyond the PIA, so I know that Section 109, subsection 4, subsection 3 has to do with the relationship between the NUPRC and the NMDPRA as to make sure that there's supply of crude, and so the estimation as to what you guys need. Then Section 4 says it must be licensed and operational. Then it has to be at international market price, and then whether you can buy in dollar or naira. So what are these details that has to be fine-tuned before this is done? Because this is a critical sector, and I would expect that some level of urgency is required given what we're facing. People are out on the streets in Nigeria because of PMS prices.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So, the NUPRC and the NMDPRA, under the provisions of the PIA, are mandated to develop guidelines under which these provisions would be implemented. So they kind of like flesh up what we would think is a skeletal framework provided by the PIA. So what you have going on, the details that you have, and I can't, it will take a lot of time if I have to go details by details on what the provisions of the DCSO guidelines are, but they're supposed to talk about the pricing, pricing negotiation, interrelationships, the processes for applying and obtaining crude oil from the marketers. So basically, it's a whole gamut of document. It's a document that guides the interrelationship between the both parties. Starts from a willing seller, willing buyer situation, and then on to curtailment and what you have. So the DCSO provides the details on how all this has to happen. So that's just with the guideline.
Okay, so let's break this down further. It's important to manage expectations and just have a picture of what the future holds so we're prepared for it. The presidency had said that FEC, that's the Federal Executive Council, approved that the 450,000 barrels meant for domestic consumption will be offered in naira, and the exchange rate will be fixed for the duration of this transaction. So perhaps that handles the concerns you have about whether or not it will be fixed and at what rate will the forex be fixed for that period. But I want us to go back to the 450,000 barrels figure. If we need 1.3 million in total for refining capacity in Nigeria, and what we're getting is 450,000 from the NNPCL, that's about 30% of what we need. So clearly, the other 60% or thereabouts, or 60+%, would be gotten from outside. And again, it goes back to the question I asked. will that significantly change the price of petrol if we're only getting 30% of our refined capacity in Naira and the other, which is more, will be gotten in dollars?
Okay, that's not exact. Your position is not exactly accurate. So what the president has said was that there used to be a 450,000 barrels that was designated for the government-owned refineries that are currently not functioning. That those quantity would be immediately as an immediate response to the situation be given to private refineries. But beyond that, we do know that there are other sources of crude in the country. We marvel at the narrative that there's no crude oil enough to service refineries in Nigeria, and I don't think this is actually correct. You do remember that there was a time, even before now, that you had, first of all, it was a crude swap, and then you had the DCSO, the DSDP arrangements where about 2 million barrels were given to people in a swap deal where they go refine and then they bring in products in. What happens to that? The DSDP, at least at the face of the law, has been abolished. That quantity can also be channeled to private refineries, to the indigenous refineries here in the country. And then the IOCs and the independents, the producers, have never at a point said that they would not sell to us. What they have always insisted on is that, okay, if they want to do business with us, the templates have to be right, the frameworks have to be right. We had never, because the regime of private refineries in Nigeria is quite new or quite green, there was no framework for dealing with private refineries in Nigeria before now. And at the time when we applied for feedstock for our refineries, which was a major condition to getting financing to build your refineries, there was a question as to where do we get the crude from? Would it come from the government's own equity, or would it come from those of the JV partners? And there was no answer. There was no framework to address this. This was where we had the logjam. But with the passage of the PIA, it made it abundantly clear that, look, it does not matter what part of the equity you are getting from. If you are producing in Nigeria, if you have a license to an acreage in Nigeria, you have an obligation first to a Nigerian refinery before you can export.
While I appreciate that, I mean, you play in the sector, I'm going to reiterate the statement that was put out by the presidency, and you can fact check this anywhere, that the Federal Executive Council has approved that the 450,000 barrels meant for domestic consumption be offered in Naira. While you may have expectations as to what should be, yes, there should be that. Of course, you should be the first priority. I mean, local refiners when it comes to crude, which we own here in Nigeria. But this is what we have to work with now. I understand that you might want to push the envelope to ensure that all of the other available crude is offered to local refineries in Naira first before you then take it out. But say charity begins at home, right? But this is what we have to work with right now. Perhaps in the coming days you can fine-tune those other areas, which is why it's important to have this conversation so we know what to expect. But when you talk about the landing cost of petrol, or rather crude oil, or petrol, I don't know which one you were talking about. Some will say, why are we talking landing cost again? I mean, there is no transportation issue. It is not going over the sea and coming back and all of that. It is not a DSDP, direct deal sale, direct purchase. It's not crude swap. It is crude that is mined here and is just taken next door to a refinery. So where does landing cost come in here again, Mr. Idoko?
So when we talk about landing to cost used here is just semantics. It's more or less like all cost inclusive. And even if you are producing it in country here, there's a bit of transportation. Either you are taking it by pipeline, in some instances you actually even have to barge it, or you're taking it by truck, because some of our members truck their refinery, their crude to the various refineries. So all those costs to be built into whatever is the final cost of this feedstock. So that's why when we refer to it, we refer it at the cost at which it is landing in your refining facility. So at that point, that's the cost at which it landed. Because all those costs has to be borne by somebody. Those costs has to be factored into your cost of production. So that's what it means. And then to what you have highlighted, yes, we understand that for now, what we are certain about is that the 450,000 barrels is what the president had spoken to, and that would satisfy the immediate need of the refineries that are producing at the capacity at which they are producing right now. But it's, like I said, it's just only it's an intervention. It's not sustainable. Because when even the refineries that are producing now have capacities of even expansion. So when the other refineries at various stages of completion comes off mainstream, there will be a need to also increase whatsoever is the quantity that would be given to local refineries. And that was why I referred to the fact that there are other sources from which the federal government can guarantee crude to refineries, and that's why I mentioned that quantity.
So if I get you correctly, what you're saying in essence is there's no need for Nigeria to export crude anymore. We have enough refining capacity in-house, at least to refine 1.3 million. Let's first focus on the local refineries before we take it out. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is that Nigeria should prioritize the functional refineries in Nigeria first. What we have producing right now, the refineries that are running are not producing, they are not refining up to 1 million barrels. What they are producing is less than 1 million barrels. So I'm saying that for those refineries that are currently functioning, that the Nigerian government should prioritize satisfying their needs. And then they can still export the quantities that they need to export. And as a matter of fact, the NUPRC has a mandate to ensure that there is increase in the production of crude. So you're not saying in essence that because we are going to be consuming 1 million, that the government the government should rest on its responsibility of ramping up production. I know that a lot has been going into farming out more acreages to be able to improve whatever is the quantity that we're producing. At the moment, we're not even meeting OPEC quota. So the NUPRC and whosoever is concerned should also work on increasing whatever quantity they have to be able to satisfy export and also satisfy the home demand. What we are simply saying is that in all this, in whatsoever you are doing, the people back home should be considered first. The refineries in Nigeria do have their...
My apologies. As we begin to wind down, I want you to speak to the issue of energy security, which you have spoken about, breaking down a few things, but in a compound form, energy security and being the next exporter of petroleum product, which is the aspiration. Mele Kyari, the GMD of the NNPC, has failed on a couple of timelines, so it's almost safe not to believe him until we see it happen, because his engagement with the House of National Assembly even had to say, I'm not lying, because we've heard this, it will come up, we'll keep shifting dates and all of that. Now he's saying August, this month, we're supposed to start refining from Port Harcourt. He's saying by December, we're supposed to be net exporters of petroleum product, not just selling crude. Should we really believe or just be cautiously optimistic, given the fact that we've been disappointed time and again? He had said that in 2019, July, when he came and took over from Mike Antibaro, he said within the lifetime of the administration, the refineries will be up and running. Until now, it's not up and running. So where should Nigerians be managing our expectation? Because we've been disappointed too many times. It's not about being pessimistic. It's about failure of the people who are making promises to meet their promises. You are the experts. What do you see?
Yeah, so like to be candid, it's a very, very interesting time for people in the energy space, especially for those of us from developing countries, with the whole campaign on cutting down on development of hydrocarbon all around the world. But then I remember something Aliko Dangote had said in one of his interviews, and it has been our punchline basically, that we have to begin to look inwards. And then the NNPC should also begin to look at collaborations more than saying, okay, we want to take this a whole haul. There are a lot of opportunities also while this is happening that we can leverage on. For instance, the African Energy Bank has just been established, and fortunately for Nigeria, we are going to be hosting the Secretariat. What are the opportunities that we can leverage on from the African Energy Bank? I know that at a point, the Afro-Exim Bank had also mentioned that they have interest in investing certain amounts of money in the development of refineries in Nigeria, of course, thanks to the success they had seen with the Dangote refinery. Right. We should begin to look at these opportunities in terms of seeing what we can do to leverage these opportunities. There's also in the document that was I mentioned in one of my interviews here that was submitted, but to this government, there was also a recommendation that a hydrocarbon refining development fund should be set up by the government to be able to support the development of refining in country. We can't be running cap in hand to countries outside our shores. We can't be running cap in hand outside our shores looking for finance. We have to innovate and look for ways of trying to bring funds to develop refineries in Nigeria.
You know, while we're talking about this and where we have something to at least look forward to, it's still mind-boggling that for decades, Nigeria has been mining crude oil, taking it all the way out of a country to be refined. And we were doing a DSDP crude swap arrangement, and we had refineries languishing in our country. It's mind-boggling. It is sad. And no one has been brought to justice for that. But we'd like to thank you so much. I'll be speaking with the Publicity Secretary of Crude Oil Refiners Association of Nigeria, Mr. Eche Stephen Idoko. Thank you for your time. And of course, I'll be speaking with you in the coming days to see how things play out in your sector.
All right. Thank you very much.
Well, we'll take a moment now. When we return, we'll bring you another side to the national conversation. This is all hands on deck, so this is something that concerns you as well. Stay with us right here on Morning Brief.
Welcome back. Day 7 is suspected to be another day of protests across Nigeria, although the intensity has tapered, given what we've seen across the country. But some centers across the country or in parts of the country are still protesting. And so we're following up on that. But we want to piggyback on some of the things that were said at a joint briefing by the security chiefs from the CDS down to other chiefs and the IGP and other formations as far as law enforcement is concerned in Nigeria, given what has played out in the last 6 days. That's why we've been joined in the program by a retired assistant director of the DSS, as well as fellow International Institute of Professional Security, Security and Intelligence Consultant and CEO of Otiyeke Universal Security, Mr. Adams Abu. Joins us via Zoom. Mr. Abu, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be with Nigerians this morning.
All right, Mr. Abu, let's get your first take from some of the remarks by the chiefs yesterday. One of the big one is the fact that the CDS has said they will go after the enemies of the state. So we've always asked experts like you how the government or the security agencies intend to manage a twin, very delicate issue. On one hand, they have a responsibility to protect the Nigerian state in terms of national security. On the other hand, they also have a responsibility to protect the protesters who have decided that we're going to go the long haul of ensuring our voices are heard, because in our view, we do not think the president responded to our demands.
Oh, thank you very much. Let me start from the speech of the Chief of Staff. I think what he said is exactly what he's supposed to say. They are supposed to make sure that this country, peace and orderliness does not break down to a level that we cannot manage. Before these protests, we very many of us spoke about what the implications of the protest would be. And so what played out was not something that we did not expect. If you take the incident, I mean, the reactions, particularly from certain parts of the northern region, we are not surprised because you have a chunk of the poor of this country from that part of the country. And therefore, it does not take them anything. Even if it's to be mobilized by any interest, you know, who want to take advantage of the protest to get at Nigerians and by extension, the government. So what they did there did not come to us as a surprise. And if you look at the South, the protest seems to have been, I mean, the southern part of Nigeria, the protest seems to have been managed, you know, according to the rules of the game, better than it is in the north. What am I saying? I am saying that the condition that even brought about these protests, hunger, is much more in the north, you know, northern part of the country, than we find it in the south, apart from level of education and things like that. So, like he said, having watched other nations' flag, I mean, being flown in Nigeria and being seen at the level at which they are calling, and some are even calling for military intervention, certainly they will certainly go after the sponsors, the perpetrators, and bring them to justice. And also make sure that they don't go further than what they are doing, so that they don't again influence other Nigerians and make the country ungovernable for us. Like we have said before, we all know that protest is our right, but how we go about it is, and I'm sure very many of the proponents of protest, I've seen that very many people have gone out of the space in this in their own protest. Therefore, security forces cannot keep their eyes and watch things. Look at what happened in Kaduna. A whole armored vehicle, was taken and was being driven. Only God knows whether it's even the agent that was forced to be driving it, or they are the one that are forced to be, driving it around. Don't also forget that this is a region that is infested with terrorists and bandits, and they will take advantage of it and make life difficult for us. So I think it's necessary that they go after them and bring peace to the country.
Well, in fact, the Kaduna State Police had put out a statement saying that, well, the APC, that's the Armored Personnel Carrier, was not taken over by the protesters, that the personnel was trying to maneuver through without causing any bodily harm, injury, or death to any of the young people there. And so that's why we saw it moving in that manner, at least according to the police. So that's the statement from the police regarding that, but there's still questions to be asked about that whole scenario. But I'd like to come now to the police specifically now, because the police is responsible primarily for security at times like this. So speak to us about what the Inspector General of Police said yesterday, that got a lot of people talking, that the police did not use live rounds, live ammunition during the protest, and the people were quick to refer to incidents in Kano and in other parts, asking that, so what exactly happened in those areas? I know there's been that debate of, are they protesters, are they thugs or hoodlums, and all of that. But what do you make of the IGP's statement, particularly in the light of the videos we've seen, the reports that have been confirmed as well about the deaths of people who had gone out on the streets, particularly in the northern part of the country? What do you make of it?
Okay, I think the issue there about Kano and certain parts of the country, I think what will happen is the outcome of an investigation that can really tell us who shot, who killed, and things like that. I had one of somebody saying that the police should have body cam and all that. We know that in this country we have not started that. I don't even know whether the pilot scheme has started. So it is difficult. So it is investigation that will tell us. But you see, what makes it to be complex? You are also aware that there were anti-protesters and who are also violent, and some of them were accused of carrying arms. If you look at the case of Kano, if you look at some of the protesters that tried to vandalize government property, you will now be thinking that there could be political undertone, considering of the political situation and the traditional issues in Kano. I'm sure that must have come to play in what really happened around that site. So in all this, I think security agencies, particularly the Office of the National Security Advisor, has a responsibility to Nigerians to go to the root of if people were killed, identify them, and then trying to find out the place and who are those that are likely to have done that. It is not something that we can sit down now and say this particular organization must have been responsible. No, we can only say, we can only be guessing. But the ideal thing to do for us, of course, if there are crises like this, investigation is the ultimate. But it must be interdisciplinary committee to investigate this kind of scenario. Don't leave it alone to the organizations that have been accused to handle it. I think it's better for us that way. However, and I want to say that with the intensity, with the way the thing turned out, I'm personally happy that protest is coming down. And I'm sure that government will not relent on its oars to look at the issues that brought about the protest so far and see what they can do. Because as a country, we need to move forward. And up to now, we have a very big security challenge on our hands that we are yet to solve, and we cannot afford to add more. And so in that context, we must not rest on our oars. All right.
We must also say, I think we got a report from a correspondent in Kaduna about this End Bad Governance protest that turned bloody in Kaduna on Tuesday, where we understand the 16-year-old was killed by a soldier accidentally. I think the defense headquarters has also spoken about that the officer involved has been taken into custody. So we're happy that the army is taking responsibility. We're happy
that's a good one.
Go ahead, sir.
I said that's a good one. You can see that security forces are not, will not deliberately be killing Nigerians, as it were. And since the officer has been taken into custody, investigation will eventually bring others out. If they need to be taken into custody, they will do.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking the question, piggyback on what Kayode has said, is the fact that it appears the IGP made a blank statement and he didn't dig down. Dig deep into that conflict. And that's what Nigerians are expecting more from him. You cannot just come on TV during a presser and say, police did not kill anybody. And if we have over 10 people killed, so who killed the people? It is still the police. For instance, when we're doing a report, one of the best ways we confirm about fatality is the report from the police. So as at this time, we expect to be hearing, in other climes, literally every day we're getting briefing of casualties. We don't wait for the entire exercise to end at the end of the day. So that's why, because the police IGP himself, which is what I want you to speak to, when he met with paramilitary heads a day before the protest, said they will be armed with body cams. Is it possible for us to see those body cams? Because that's the only way Nigerians will believe him.
Thank you very much. I think you see, when we begin to compare our public officers with other climes, in most cases I laugh. I laugh because these are people that have gone to those countries and see what is practiced there. And how many times have they come here to practice them in our own country? Like you said, he said there was going to be body cam, and we have not seen yet what the body cam, who are those that wore it, and whether the places this incident happened, there were officers that had body cam that can give us, something. But all I think we should do now is, like I said, let there be in fact, if the police will not do it immediately, let the federal government set up an investigation panel to begin to to work on what is happening and what had happened, and so that Nigerians can truly know, because already from what you have said, he has cleared his organization, but I think the investigation will finally tell us whether what he said is right or not. And like you said, even if they had body cam, how many of them will have? I don't think all members of the Nigerian police force by now will have body cams when they are going out on operation. It's something that we are starting, and we are not likely. But that as it may, investigation will tell us whether some of the killings that happened were done by the police, right, or were done by some thugs that were brought in by anti-protesters and all the like.
And I know the conversation around body cam, yes, is the ideal, but we have operational vehicles to fill. We have petrol to buy for generating sets in police stations, other issues that we need to resolve around the operations of the police. So I don't know exactly how body cams will play in, but it's the ideal. It's something we look forward to and we need to see so we can ensure accountability. But now that you mentioned, the tricky dichotomy between protesters and is it thugs, looters, or hoodlums? And I know there's been that debate that is being thrown around. Some will say, well, when it's peaceful, they are protesters. But when it goes awry, then there are hoodlums, thugs, and looters. We've identified at least some heads, or at least some arrowheads of protests, some organizations, the Take It Back movement, and some others who have said, well, we're protested, right? And we expect protection from the police. We're going to keep it peaceful. These are our demands, and we'll stay to ensure these demands are met. So we have those ones. But we've also seen things go violent in other parts of the country. We've seen curfews being imposed. So what would be your advice then, and I'm saying across board, first to those who are legitimately protesting peacefully, what would be your advice to them in the light of the recent happenings, waving flags here and there, and all of the incidents we're seeing? I don't know if it's okay to advise the looters and the rest, but you can try to. But how would you speak to those who are demonstrating generally?
Oh, thank you very much. I think, let me first say that if you start a protest, within that protest, anybody can turn to looter. He can turn to, he may still remain a genuine protester. He might turn to a thief. So the organizers don't even have control of the protesters that they call out. Therefore, I think my first advice is to everybody that will be coming out to protest, to know that this thing has a rule, and you must keep to that rule. And for the for the organizers, they should know. Look at the case in Kano. If you look at those teenagers and infants that came out, and if you look at Kaduna too, I think the organizers had a responsibility to call off that protest because it was turning out to be something else, because that was not their initial expectation. So if the expectations are no longer what I saw some people, I don't want to call a particular young man, he's very popular in this country. After he attended the first one and he saw video from other places, he's based in Abuja, and he went on his Instagram and other social media handle, and he said, look, let us stop, let us not come out today. I think that was the day before yesterday. I took my cap for him. And I think since then, even before the various states, ordered curfew and things like that. When you discover that what you wanted is no longer what is playing out, the leaders have a responsibility to call it off and possibly begin to go into dialogue with the government for us to achieve. I know that most of them did not get what they expected they would get from the president's speech, but we are still in this country, and we are all looking for better life for all of us. And I think it will be better. But we must not be violent.
Pardon me.
And we must not sponsor thugs and whatever during protests.
Right, and then that's the flip side. So some have said this can easily be a tactic from government, right? So plant questionable characters in the midst of them so that things will go awry, loot a little bit here and there, cause mayhem here and there. So the protesters will be cowed and say, you know what, we're no more going about what the Constitution at least empowers us to do, to voice our concerns within the ambit of the law. So what do you say to those who have the theory that this may also be sponsored by governments to ensure that people don't come out to protest?
Thank you very much. I will not use the word government, but I will use the word of some Nigerians, particularly politicians, who want to be seen that they are working. They want some government officials to see that they are working. They could be the one that are planning this. Because from my own experience, at least as an intelligence officer, I know something we call psychological operations. When there are going to be issues, you have a way of carrying out some programs through a psychological approach to deal with them, but certainly not planting violence during the period. So the people that are pinpoint that are sponsoring this are politicians and some people who want to benefit from government, who want to be seen that they are doing something. I mean, just imagine if you look at I think is it Lagos? I mean, what I saw from that part, you discover that there are some people that just want to be seen, and they go back that we did this, we did that. Certainly, government will not get up and begin to make vote. I don't think we have degenerated to that level. And if that can be proved, that must be most unfortunate. Then we are not anywhere near democracy at all for any reason.
All right, Mr. Abo, as we begin to wind down, one of the things I want to draw your attention to, first, we must commend the security agencies, especially the ones that are doing their job professionally. So we must be clear on that, that is not all of the elements that are misrepresenting the force or the military. In other climes, I know you say when we talk other climes, you start laughing, but that's why we're here, to develop. Remember what happened with the assassination attempt on Trump? Lapses in terms of security. The head of the Secret Service had to resign. Well, that doesn't happen here. Now, so where I'm going with this narrative is the police or the state government that approached the court to say, confine the protesters to Ganifa Park and Peace Park. One of the reasons they gave is that even the police is not sufficient enough to be on ground to police everywhere. So speaking from an intelligence point of view, because there may never be a time when people want to protest and there will be no, oh, it can be hijacked and this and that. Is it that what can be done so that everybody's right is protected at all times, not the excuse of inability to protect or hijack at the end of the day? Because there's a great point at saying police can protect everywhere or police everywhere.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Well, first, let me say this. The court, looking at how big Abuja is and its environment, decided to say that protesters should be confined to the stadium. In my own opinion, I don't know whether it's a contempt, but if it is, they should forgive me. I don't think that was the right thing to do. They should have pinpointed more places, because you know that hundreds of thousands of people will be coming out. And like we said, police cannot be everywhere. If that is their reason for confining, them to that stadium, they should have added more places so that there will be no agitation here and there. And I think one of the things I heard, they said national stadium. The environment of the national stadium, some alleged, I heard one of the lawyers said, the environment is still part of the national stadium and things like that. So in their own judgment, they should try to be definite and give more room, because that is the only thing that can happen. But let me come to the performance of security agencies. I saw some police officers, I don't know whether it's Adamawa, fantastic job. Fantastic job. And other states, they were going side by side with the protesters. The protesters couldn't go violent. In fact, they even served them with pure water. That is fantastic. That's modern day policing. And as it comes to the issue, if there is any failure and people resigning. But you are in this country where somebody is even in the prison and he still win election. I mean, we don't add morality to our own public service. And so that is what we are suffering. Right. And I think until we get to that level, I mean, how many people have cases with, how many people have cases in with the EFCC? Trillions. And they will tell you that because he has not been convicted, they are in the Senate, they are in the National Assembly, they are governors, they are everything. That is the kind of democracy we preach. I wish we can preach a democracy where no public servant will touch a dime out of public funds that can be used for the development of our nation. That is what other nations did. You can't do that in America, you can't do that in other nations. I think that's my submission. Very painful anyway. Your
submissions are quite apt. Thank you so much, sir. Retired Assistant Director of the DSS, Fellow International Institute of Professional Security and the Security and Intelligence Consultant, CEO of Otieke Universal Security. Mr. Adams Abu joining us via Zoom. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you, my Nigerians. My pleasure to be with you this morning. I appreciate you.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll switch gears to the sub-national, and in focus is Edo State. Join us again.
Some of them are meant to be meted. For example, the federal government has been saying states have been given bags of rice. In your state, Edo State, there's been the controversy, government saying, we did not receive any bag of rice. We've had other state governors also saying, we've not gotten these bags of rice yet. So for the measures that are even meant to be meted, they are not feeling the impact. Minister.
Well, thank you very much. I think for any governor to say that he has not received trucks of rice, 20 trucks of rice, it's not be fair. In the case of Edo State, we have just measured. Look at what happened. You see, read from social media and the television, how people went into warehouses, broke into warehouses, and brought out these goods. The state governor, for instance, got his own. And I can say in clarity that there are some state governors who, of course, are engineering this process. Because even himself, you have just measured, the governor of Edo State, you have just measured. Recently, when the protest started, he was the one that organized people at the Kick Square, addressed them, and at the end of the day, what did he say? He said, I'm going to carry your message to the federal government, that is to Abuja. We are talking of head of bad governors. The pressure is given is that it is the bad governors is at the doorstep of the federal government, whereas the resources of this country is being shared among the 3 tiers of government. We should expect such a person to address the problem we have in Edo State. How many roads has he been able to tie? How many erosion problems has he been able to solve? But rather, what he does is that if government brings relief like this, he will back them and put his name. We saw what happened during the COVID, and that is the same thing that is happening today. I watch on the screen so many governors distributing their relief materials, both rice and fertilizer. For instance, I watched the Bayelsa State governor directing that no person in government should get any dime of this rice. And the same thing, some other states that I watched on the television. But in the case of Edo State, there's nothing like that.
So let's hear from the government of Edo State. We have joining us the Commissioner for Communication and Orientation, Mr. Chris Nehikari, via Zoom on the program. You're welcome to the Morning Brief, Mr. Nehikari.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So let's hit the ground running, as they say. But the minister there is saying that for any government to say they have not gotten the 20 trucks of rice is being unfair. As at today, or at least the last time you checked, have you received the 20 trucks of rice that the federal government says it is sharing to states?
Well, first of all, I think the minister needs to get his information right. You know, you mentioned things about Edo State government rebagging. I think I'll start from there. That is completely false, and it also shows that the minister is not aware of what's happening in the state because it's lost somewhere in Abuja. We have a robust program being managed by the religious bodies, Christians and Muslim bodies. And these bodies received in the last 3-4 months from the state government 2.2 billion naira for the purchases of food items, including rice, to be shared from a network which they designed. If you know what I mean, they designed that network of how to distribute these food items to the poor and vulnerable. And this thing started in March 2024, when the government, Edo State government, met with these religious bodies, told them that with the crisis we are anticipating, with the high cost of living, it will be okay if they can participate and, in fact, take charge of making sure that people in Edo State get food. Not just rice, food, gari, plantain, yam, anything to help keep these people out of hunger. Edo State government now provided 1 billion a couple of months ago and another 1 billion recently. In fact, a total of 2.2 billion. The chairman of CAN in Edo State even made this clarification. Edo State government did not buy rice. Edo State government did not buy anything, but gave this people the money to do it because they have a network, churches all over the place, mosques all over the place, and people, when they are hungry, they can walk into a church or a mosque and get fed. There are videos, there are news reports, there are all sorts of ways to verify this thing. And the big government monitor this thing. You know, and because of politicians like Engineer Momo, the government makes sure these things are properly done. So when Engineer Momo comes and talks about the paltry 20 trucks, and by the way, 25 kg bags of rice in 20 trucks across 18 local governments for over 7 million people, how does that help?
Mr. Naikari, I'd like you to speak pointedly to the point he made. Has Edo State received the 20 trucks of rice from the federal government? Yes or no? So we get that out of the way.
In March, well, I will say we received some trucks of rice, but not rice. Recently, we got grains and gari.
From the federal government?
That's what we got. And it was distributed by a formula designed by the federal government to IDPs, to local governments. The state government did not keep one bag. There was no reason for that because these things were given out just as it was designed. So when the minister speaks of state government rebagging, I think it's below a minister to speak in such terms, the propaganda being perpetrated by his political party. The minister has completely lost touch with what's happening in his home state. And talking about 20 bags of rice or 20 trucks of rice, it is so funny that they have turned the protest into that. We all know what the protest is about. It's about policy and programs. It's about the failure of policy and programs of the APC government.
Mr. Naikari,
that is why they protested.
Mr. Naikari,
not because they did not get rice.
Okay, I wanted to be sure. So we need to reiterate because we saw the video. And I know that Senator Adams Oshomole spoke to that video. The Honorable Minister has now spoken to that video, and it has to do with rice. The accusation here is that the federal government has sent rice to Edo State, just like it's sent to other states of the Federation, and then the government is rebagging this rice for the purpose of election. So I want you to put it on record, whether or not they've received any rice, and speak to that particular video yet again, so that we clear this once and for all.
Thank you very much. And that's a very valid point you've made. Edo State government is not rebagging any rice. Edo State government did not buy any rice. The rice you saw in that video that was vandalized that belonged to a vendor is the rice purchased by the CAN, the religious bodies, who are the ones distributing rice after they received the sum of 1 billion naira from Edo State government. That is the rice you saw, not federal government rice, not Edo State government rice. What we do in Edo State is a program which is very clear, an ADSG support, food support program, where we provide money to religious bodies to buy food items, including rice, to feed Edo people. That is what we have done. That's what consistently done. If they are thinking that the rice is vandalized in that truck belongs to the federal government, I will tell you, no, it is not. Categorically, no, it is not. The chairman of CAN in Edo has spoken to that video. The secretary of the implementing committee, who is also a member of CAN, has also spoken to that video. It is not federal government rice, and it is obviously definitely not backed by Edo State government. I can tell you that for free.
Well, at the end of the day, because we saw the federal government said they will send rice, and then they said they've even sent rice at the heat, just was more like the eve of the protest. And so we have to redirect this to the federal government as to how far with the rice as far as Edo State is concerned. But there was another accusation the Honorable Minister made against the Edo State government, which was the fact that the government organized the End Bad Governance protest in Edo State. I want you to respond to that as well, because this is about giving you the right of reply.
I think that, well, like I said earlier, the minister doesn't know what he's speaking about. It's lost in Abuja. The protest, we all know what it was about. It was about the failures of the APC government programs and policies. It's clear. It's not about Edo State government programs and policies. In Edo State, maybe I have to remind him, maybe he has lost focus. In Edo State, we were the first state to implement the 70,000 naira minimum wage for Edo people. In Edo State, we are still offering free bus services within Benin City and across these local governments in Edo State. This has been going on since September last year in Edo State. We also offer free Wi-Fi at designated spots across the state. This is in Edo State. We also have a feeding program being run by the Khan and religious bodies in Edo State, whereby the poorest of the poor, if according to our poverty map, receive rice and other food items regularly from the state government. Now,
right.
How would people, our pensioners, I'll tell you as well, are all registered for free into the Edo State health insurance scheme. That health insurance scheme on the health issue is probably the highest expense of any older person within the country. This is happening in Edo State. We have done a lot for Edo State, and I don't follow it. And that is why our protest here was probably the most peaceful, because people trust the government, they trust their government, and their government is doing the right thing for them. On the other hand, the federal government haphazardly removed subsidy that has led to the high cost of living, that has led to all these things that people are crying about today in Nigeria.
Well, Mr. Nehikari, what the federal government has since said about that.
20 bags of rice to a state, 20 bags of rice, or 20 trucks of rice to a state of 5 or 6 million people.
Right,
Mr. Nehikari. Millions of naira given directly.
So I don't want this to just be about the rice. So we are not like in the typical Nigerian party fighting over rice. But it's very important because 20 trucks of rice is a lot, and it will go a long way, at least to some extent, to alleviate some of the challenges people are facing. But that's not the only thing the federal government says it has given to states in that sense. 570 billion naira is also said to have been given to the states. And I did the math, just averaging it by 36. That's 2.2 billion naira. Again, there may be differences here and there, but just do the face value average. So has Edo State gotten that money? And what did Edo State use the money for?
Has Edo State gotten that money? Edo State use the money for? My money comes to the government coffers. There are commitments here and there to help and take care of its citizenship. First and foremost, when I talk about the free bus service that we are offering in the past almost a year now, those buses run on diesel. They run, the people who work there, are they not getting paid? We see, we're not like the APC that want the money shared and put in their pocket. No, we are using it for things you can feel, for things the people are directly for the welfare of the people, which the government is managing. That's what we're doing with it. So, and then also when you talk about 2.2 billion, think about it, my brother. Before May 29th, 2023, the value of 2.2 billion of today, is it the same value? Even buying cement, buying fuel, anything you buy now, inflation has eroded it. So in real terms, state governments are getting almost close to nothing in real terms. So federal government should not go and say they've given 540 billion to states, when in actual fact what they've done is actually trying to plug a hole that is 10 meters deep.
So basically what you're saying is you've received the money, But it is not enough, the 570 billion naira, which the government said it has released to the 36 states. But you're saying it's not enough because of inflation.
It's certainly not enough.
Okay.
For the food program alone, we are spending
but how is the state,
2.2 billion.
Right, but how is your state itself generating revenue? Because this is something we've talked about. It is not enough for states to just go cap in hand to Abuja and say, okay, give us from FAC. What is Edo State doing? How is Edo State matching up? Is Edo State able to even get more from IGR? Have you been able to optimize? Those are the questions we need to ask as well from some nationals.
Of course, those are the sort of questions we want to be able to discuss. But APC is distracting us by talking about.
So don't let's get distracted. Let's speak to Edo State, Mr. Naikar.
Exactly. Now, Edo State government has done so much. We put the building blocks in place. And today we have lots of industries that have come into a state, employing our people, paying taxes, and taking care of our people. Employment is rising here. We are probably one of the sub-nationals that things are going up. Things are going up because we're able to manage our resources, bring in investors. In the agri sector alone, we brought in over $4 billion of investment into Edo State. We have the oil palm, what we call the Edo State Oil Palm Project. We have ethanol plants, at least three scattered around our state. We have modular refineries, another 3 scattered around our state. Private investors in all sectors, bringing in a lot of money, employing people, employing our people, and the IGR is growing. We have not increased the rates of taxes. What we have done is in the net. More people are paying taxes because they believe that this government is doing the right thing, going in the right direction. And that is why we've been able to increase our IGR from a paltry 2 billion 4 years ago, 8 years ago, to almost 6 billion naira monthly at us today.
All right, Honorable Commissioner.
And don't also forget, we are probably the only state that pays the staff salary on or before the 25th of every month, clean and clear, and before the increase the minimum.
All right, Honorable Commissioner, let me butt in so that I'll properly contextualize what the Honorable Minister has said. So he talked about some governors instigating the protests by essence, and which is why states were referenced and Edo State came into being. I needed to put that clarification. But piggyback on what he said there, he said the governor had said, oh, we'll take your request to the president. He's somehow, maybe indirectly or implicitly saying, you're taking the request to the president, more like you're saying bad governance is at the federal level. So inference now, so that will be clear. You're saying bad governance at the federal level. What is happening in Edo State, for instance? For him, by his estimation, my guess is that it's really not impressive. So direct question, we've seen FAC allocation coming to states, increased FAC allocation, although Governor Caleb Moftuang of Petrol State has said, given the differentials in terms of exchange rate, it may not be as much as people are touting it to be. But by fact, in Naira terms, FAC allocation has increased. How much of that has impacted the Edo State purse, and how is Edo State utilizing that fund to better the lives of their people?
I just told you. First and foremost, whatever the minister said, you should be asking him, the riot or the protest in the first place, what was it about? That is the bottom line. What was it about? Was it about Edo State government, or was it about the federal government failed policies? And then when the governor received the protesters, when he met with them, and they told him their demands, first of all, fiscal policies on finance. Is it a Edo State government policy? Is it controlled by the state government? No, it's controlled by the federal government. The price of petrol, is it by Edo State government? No, it's by federal government. All these things that have made life difficult for Nigerians, these things are a direct consequence of federal government programs and policies. In Edo State, we are doing whatever we can do, and we are succeeding at it to make our people live a better life. Employment is going up. We have industries that are coming in here. Our IGR is improved. Salaries are paid as well due. Pensioners are receiving their pensions. Gratuities are being paid. Then we have a feeding program, which we have financed with over 2 billion in the last 3 months. We have free bus service, like I mentioned earlier, so that our people can move around without worrying about paying for it or spending money from their pockets. This is what government does to make sure that people's lives are impacted. We have an education system that is close to free. Now, Mr. Minister is lost in Abuja. Unfortunately, why you're doing this is because of the elections that are coming. That's the only reason. And now they're trying to distract from the work government is doing to issue of rice. Edo State government will pass that level of discussing how many bags of rice were received or not received, because we are directly impacting people with over 2 billion. We claim that, assuming that is what federal government said you brought to Edo State, we have spent that on rice through the can, not through us.
All right.
The chairman of can attest to it. He can go on in Fabi and he will tell you, not just on rice, but on all food items. Rice, yam, plantain. That is what Edo State government is doing on that issue.
Well,
but unfortunately, elections are coming and people need to hear themselves speak.
And we know that elections will naturally change the optics, but for the purpose of this conversation, I'd like us to stay away from comments that might be offensive or offend the sensibilities. I'm saying he's lost might offend the sensibilities. Let's just stick to the issues and not the personalities so we don't lose sight. So Nigerians are calling for end to bad governance. The thinking here, at least from what the minister said, is the states are turning all of the attention to the federal government. To an extent, you've made a case. Yes, the federal government made some decisions, policy decisions, economic decisions that have brought us here. But that is not to say that it is not a joint responsibility. If not, why then do we have governors? Why elect governors? Or why do we have local governments as well if they don't have shared responsibility? After all, they share FAC money, so they can also share the responsibility for governance in the country. And this is where I'm going to. 2 tiers of government are at the sub-nationals. Clearly, the local government and the state government. I think this has presented an opportunity for governments to sit up and see that you cannot take the people for granted anymore. If you're not efficient, if you're not effective and providing the dividends of democracy to Nigerians as a government, then they have the responsibility to, at least they can voice out and kick you out. Would you say the Edo State government has been able to live up to expectations? I mean, we saw images of flooding in the state recently. People were calling it River Obaseki. I think the minister also spoke to that. People have also talked about the vast agricultural potential of Edo State, the youths as well. How well is Edo State able to harness all of that? So speak to us in terms of ensuring that subnationals deliver on infrastructure, the roads that were talked about, the flooding, empowerment of the youth, basically, and also ensuring that the subnational at the local government level is adequately empowered to do its work.
Thank you very much. This is what Edo State thrives on. Because we're always very happy because we have a very good story to tell. On the agriculture sector, I mentioned while we were speaking earlier that at least $4 billion have been invested in Edo State under this government for agriculture. They have been manned by those citizens. They have been manned by our youth. But the finance, the money, the infrastructure, the farms, they are all here. Not all. I'm sure you're aware that Edo State right now is the highest producer of palm oil in the whole of West Africa because of the deliberate investment we brought into that sector. We have ethanol, 3 ethanol refineries. They are being manned by Edo people. They're all working here in Edo State and all in the last 8 years of this administration. For employment, we have employed over 6,000 people into the state civil service alone. And all our first-class graduates from any university in Nigeria, anywhere in the world, recognized are given automatic employment. We have trained over 25,000 people in the IT. And at least half of those
if I may butt in, my apologies, because of time. Some of the things you said, commendable. We must also say that from the records we have, the IGR has grown. So has the debt burden of the state grown, because Edo is one of the states with very high dependence on FAC. As of 2022, 71%. We don't know the latest numbers yet, but IGR, we can see that it has grown even maybe about 100% and all of that. But the debt burden, Governor Godwin Obaseki will be leaving the state, the debt burden of almost maybe over 500 to 550 billion naira. How does the government intend to speak to the people and tell them, look, we can, if you vote us in during the election, do something different to reposition the fortune of the state?
You see, debt burden, we have the capacity to handle this debt. If not, we will not be taking it. And you can see where it's going to. You can see where it's going to. And just a few months ago, I'm sure you also read, you mentioned 2022 figures. Edo State paid about 25% or 30% of that debt portfolio. So we are handling it. And then when you have, and the debt also ballooned to that rate when the dollar tripled or quadrupled. So if you look at it in real terms, it's not that we're taking more. It's just that we will now have more to look at because of the exchange rate, because of the dollar rate. If you divide that figure by 400, which was the dollar rate, you will know you're not going to get the figure you just got. But when you now do it by the 1,600, 1,600 of today, then we're having such a huge figure. So I don't put trust us that whatever we have borrowed, and don't forget, not just this state, not just this government has borrowed it, it's Edo State. Edo State is good for whatever it has borrowed.
Okay, Mr. Nehikari, we really have to run now, but here's what we'll do. We'll keep the conversation ongoing with Mr. Governor in the coming days, because this is something that we need to focus on. By the way, I made an error earlier on when I did the calculation, the 570 billion divided by 36. It's actually 15.8 billion, not 2.2 billion. The 2.2 billion you said got into my head, Mr. Nehikari. It's 15.8 billion that states are expected to have gotten, and Henry Banks brought that to my attention early on. But we have to anchor at this point, but clearly this is not the end of a conversation. Thank you for joining us, for providing insight into what your government is doing, and we hope that Governor Obaseki can come to speak to Nigerians in the coming days. I think that is something at least that is a commitment you can give to Nigerians and the people of Edo.
Oh yeah, the governor will come. And also, I want Edo people to make a conscious effort to get away from the APC years of locusts.
Well, it's not time for campaign, Mr. Nehikari. We're not doing campaign on the show this morning, Mr. Nehikari. We'll do that in the coming days. Thank you for your time. I'm speaking with the Commissioner for Information in Edo State.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, that has been the show, but we need to take just one comment before we go. And this is quite interesting, Jeffrey, from one of our viewers.
Go ahead, please.
And this is from Emir_MD3 saying that how much will it take to fix one of our refineries? Let the federal government talk to well-meaning Nigerians to contribute 1,500 each. And I'm sure 150 million of us will respond. I did the math. This wouldn't come to $150 million at the end of the day. We need much more for a refinery. Yes.
Yeah, let's also say that Favor Philly didn't come fourth. She came sixth.
Yes, sixth.
So this guy is saying federal government should do GoFundMe through the citizens. But that's all we have time for. Thank you so much for your time and your company. I'm Jeffrey Zoma. Bye-bye.
Brilliant point. Let's all join hands together to build our nation. I'm Kayode Kikilo. Sunrise Daily is next. Stay with us here on Channels Television. Goodbye.